Welcome to the first actionable video for this web hosting guide, and we're going to start with a Google Workspace, specifically for a nonprofit. Now, this is not required, and if you don't have one of these, that's a-okay. At least watch it to kind of understand what we're going to be going over. If you are a organization that is a nonprofit with an EIN and meets these eligibility requirements, you can check out those at your leisure. This is a great way of getting Google's Drive storage and Google emails for free. Google has an awesome thing for nonprofits, and they really help out communities with using this. And if you have an EIN number, absolutely get started. You're going to create an account and start a new request. They're going to be asking you some information. They're going to be asking for your EIN number, which if you are a 501c3, you will have, and you're going to need a physical address and some contact info. You're going to go ahead and begin this process and go through. You're going to have to wait for some verification, and then they'll give you an activated product. And I'm going to log into an account that has that activated product. Okay, so I've logged into my account that's an administrator for this workspace. If you were to set up your workspace, eventually you would get to this view once it's all been verified and set up. And the primary reason we're doing this is going to be in the directory up here and then groups. The reason we want groups is for longevity. We want people to receive the correct emails without having to change that email every time. Specifically, why we need it now is going to be for registering our web domain. You want this website domain to go to the proper person who can pay the bill. If you pay for 5 years of a domain name now, are you going to be the guy in 5 years that's paying that bill, or do you want someone on the board who has the credit card for your bank account and stuff to pay that bill? Something to think about there. And so I would strongly recommend having an administrator email address, admin at whatever. And that's what I'm going to be using to register all of these other services and set up an account to log into. You might note that we have a board email. I have this for everyone on the board. Every year we change this out. So if you know that you're reaching out to sponsors or donors or what have you, it'll always be board@domain.com. But I don't want that going to last year's board, and I want to be able to change it for next year's board when we have new people involved. And so you just come in here and click manage members and pull the people out that have left and brought in the new people that are still around. And this is a way to keep that going over time without your knowledge really getting lost. On that concept, a lot of this kind of stuff is going to be thinking about what's going to happen when you're not there. We're going to need to keep track of passwords, and we're going to need to keep track of what email is registered for what. Now, I would recommend using Google Drive for this function. This is not the smartest, safest, what have you way to store this information, but a shared Drive file shared with the current board and then restricted exclusively to those board members, I think is relatively safe way to keep track of some of this. It won't stop a rogue board member from logging into these things. You could restrict it to just the president or just the web admin, but it's important to keep track of what service, such as Cloudflare, such as Ghost, such as Hetzner, where those logins are, so they know how to go reset that password. I wouldn't necessarily say to store that password here. I would just mark whose email to go check to click reset password and get that access restored. So that would be a shared drive in the Google Drive for the workspace that you are in. The Google Workspace is awesome because you get 100 terabytes of storage for your organization, which is probably plenty and way more than we're going to need for this. But this is where we're going to be backing up our files to and kind of storing some of that knowledge. So specific to this scenario, I'm going to have a folder called web hosting, and then I'm just putting it in this folder so you can't see everything else in there, called video info. And we're going to come in and we're going to create a new doc for Google, and we're going to call it login info for web hosting services. The first of which is going to be our Google Workspace. And for this one, can't change it now, domain.com. I kind of wish I had this more generic, but this also works to get a user in, and then I can get the next person that's going to take over for me after with their first name, and then give them all the permissions of owner of admin for this workspace, and then they can delete me on the way out. But that way, someone has full admin control, and there's a way to kind of chase this down. I would not plan on keeping an administrator here because we're going to have that as a group. You email admin@domain.com and it's going to go to charles@domain.com or their Gmail or personal email address. We're just separating so that you have the opportunity to change things and add people over time and remove people from over time. We want to have secure access to this information. So the registration email for all services, admin@domain.com. So next up, it's going to be Cloudflare, and that's going to be admin@domain.com. That is pretty much the extent of our Google Workspace for now. We're going to be adding our email DNS records at a later date once we have our domain name. But for this video, I think we've kind of went a little quicker than I thought because I couldn't show you how to register the account. But you're going to just make a Google Workspace. You're going to come over here. You're going to make a group. You're going to make an administrator group, admin@domain.com, and you're going to add yourself. Now, I've been talking about having this Google Workspace email group for your admin@yourdomain.com. If you don't have access to a tax identification number or you're not a nonprofit, that's probably going to be outside of your budget for this exercise. So an option that we do have with our domain that we purchased from Cloudflare is email routing. It will almost function as another email account, but it really just sends it to an email that you already have. The benefit to this is if I were to leave the organization tomorrow, I could set somebody else as the email routing and they should still have access to all of these things. The downside to this is they'll still have to have access to this Cloudflare domain. You can transfer it between accounts and it's not that bad, but in general, if possible, you're going to want to use that Google Workspace group to do this because your domain would be registered there, your Hetzner server would be registered there, everything's in one spot. But if you can't do that or it's not an option and you still like the idea of having it all in one place that you could theoretically forward to someone else in the future, you could use the email routing. Now, I'm going to use this email routing to set up Mailgun. I did not use this email routing for setting up Hetzner. This is primarily because I already use my email for Mailgun for Chuck Builds. So I don't want that to be showing twice. We're going to try and keep it separate for the sake of this video. And I thought we'd just go ahead and cover it while we're here. I didn't want to surprise you later when you see the DNS record changes. So what we'll do is we'll go to email routing. In the email routing tab, there should be a getting started page. I had to click skip on that, so it doesn't quite look the same, but you would just enter your desired email, such as admin@domain.com, and then your destination email, which I will try to create it here from the routing rules. And it looks very similar to this, but I'll do admin@chuckbuildsawebsite.com. We'll forward it to chuck@chuckbuilds.com. And this is just so that everything's in one place. You can change this destination email. This is not quite as good as using the Google Workspace, but for me right now, using Mailgun, which we're about to get to, I needed to have an email address available because I'm already using this on a different account. I want it to be a clean sheet when you see me set it up. So we're going to get this email address created and then we'll go create a Mailgun account with it. So once you set up this email address, you're going to receive an email to verify it, and then we need to enable email routing. So we'll just click this link and Cloudflare makes it easy to add the records and enable. So all of those have been added to our DNS records here so that it will properly forward our emails, and now I can use this to register for the other accounts. You could use this email for Hetzner, you could use this email for Mailgun, you could use this when you're setting up all of your logins for this effort, but you won't be able to use it for the domain itself. That's why I like the Google Domain Workspace group, is because you can get it at the very top level, but this is better than nothing in my opinion.